My name is Erica Fleming, president of the university, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you this evening to our very special event called It's Not Just Men. I think that many of you know that this has been an event that we've been planning for quite some time. The exhibit that we have this evening is on loan from Duke University, and we're very excited to have it here alongside ours. As you know, we're going to start out with a panel discussion, and I know that you're looking forward to hearing from our experts. But before we get started, I'd like to thank all the people who made this event possible and who really worked hard. I'd like to start off, obviously, thanking our panelists because they took time, excuse me, from their very busy schedule to come share their expertise with us, and we're going to introduce them a little bit more formally in a couple of minutes. But let me just mention them. Marie Fernandez-Leon, Managing Director for Imagery Creative Communications. Jason Anasi, I hope I'm pronouncing the last names correctly, CEO and Creative Director of the Factory Interactive. Bruce Tercel from Tercel Advertising. Barry Sade, graphic illustrator and designer. And of course, one of our own instructors and graphic design expert, Arthur Rockauer. I'd also like to thank our sponsors this evening that really helped us out. Starting out with the AdFed Miami chapter, the Spatino Catering, DPR Printing, Miami Biscayne Bay, Danny Santiago, one of our distinguished alumni, and the Miami Chamber's Creative Industry Committee. Along with them, we also had some donations for our raffle. And for those of you who have not put their business card in, you're still in time to put it into our bowl for the raffle that will take place in a few minutes. And the gifts that were donated, I'd like to thank the Apple Store for the iPod Shuffle, the Grassbug Group, who gave a $100 gift certificate for any of their restaurants, the Marriott Biscayne Bay for a three-day, two-night certificate at their hotel, and DPR Printing for a customized full order of business cards. So again, a real big thank you to all of them. As you know, in this very difficult economy, it is especially generous that they would help us with an event like this. So we're really very grateful for all their assistance. And then lastly, I'd like to thank all the faculty and staff at MIU who worked really hard to put this event together, especially the person who worked very hard behind the scenes, frankly, for about the last 2 years. Where is she? Our Director of PR, Marcia Gomez. And so now I'd like to turn it over to one of our current MIU advertising students, who also was the former president of AdFed MIU, Hector Castillo.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to all of our panelists. Jason Anasi is the CEO and Creative Director of the Factory Interactive, a digital design and marketing agency. Jason started his love affair with Virgin Media in the early 90s, developing award-winning websites and print campaigns for Miami-based agencies. He founded the award-winning Factory Interactive, whose roster of clients includes AOL Latin America, American Airlines Arena, Estefan Enterprises, Cable and Wireless Coverall, Carnival Cruise Lines, and the Miami Heat Group. Jason is an active board member of the American Advertising Federation of Greater Miami. Next to his left is Marie Fernandez-Leon. Marie is the managing director, and partner of Imagery Creative Communications. Her role at Imagery includes business development, sales management, event marketing, and finding unique avenues to market imagery on a local and national level. Marie's background includes being director of marketing and corporate communications for Bayview Financial Trading and SCG Ventures, a private venture capital firm. Currently, Marie serves on the board of directors of and acting treasurer of the American Advertising Federation. Next, we have Mr. Rockauer. He is a graduate of the State University of New York. He studied at Brooklyn Museum School of Art and the Art Students League of New York. During his 45-year career in the graphic arts industry, Mr. Rockhauer has held numerous executive positions in the field. He was also creative director of his own design studio. As a current instructor at Miami International University of Art and Design, he was chosen as most inspiring teacher by the graphic design graduating class of 2004. And he has received the Outstanding Faculty Award from the Miami International University of Art and Design. And at the end is Barry Sade. Barry Sade's career as an illustrator and graphic designer took off with a series of posters he created for the theater at the University of Toronto. Since then, his decorative drawings were seen in London Times, British Vogue, and different advertisements. He became well known for his witty illustrations and colorful covers for New York Magazine, the New York Times, Australian Vogue, Sesame Street Magazine, a series of nostalgic billboard for 7-Up, and also in advertising, packaging, and display. Last but not least, we have Mr. Bruce Turkel, who has helped create some of the world's most compelling brands, including HBO, Discovery, Networks Latin America, and Miami. Over the last 25 years, Bruce has also worked with American Express, Charles Schwab, Citicorp, Hasbro, and Nike, just to name a few. Bruce is the creative director and CEO of Turkel, his brand management firm specializing in travel, tourism and entertainment, healthcare, and financial services. He is also creative director and CEO of Origin Global, a joint venture between Turkel and Group Enye, Spain's largest promotional agency. So without further ado, let's begin our discussion. Well, first, I'd like to ask, why would you say that the 60s era was known as the golden age of advertising?
If I'd have known this was going to happen, I would have had my scotch before I got here. To me, it's a golden age because I was in the industry a good decade before the 60s, and it was a very strange kind of environment for a young man coming out of college, because in those days, when you want to apply for a job, you had to put down what your religion was. You had to put down what your race was. It just made you so uncomfortable about trying to get a job. There was a young fella at that time by the name of Peretz Rosenbaum who just couldn't get a job to save his life. He just wonderful work that he did in the late 40s until he changed his name to Paul Rand, and he was hired almost right away. It was the kind of a business that would, if you didn't know someone, you'd never get ahead. It was so tough, it was really hard for a young guy. So what you did is you looked around with word of mouth to try to find somebody who could get you in somewhere. And at a party one time, I met someone who was had a small studio over on Herald Square in Manhattan. It was Marshall Associates and a couple of nice Jewish boys, and they gave me a job. And of course, it was a very important job. I filled a lot of rubber cement jars, and I cleaned up a lot of mechanicals. And if I was really very good, they sent me for coffee. And there were times when I could do roll-ups on mechanical boards and put in all the register marks. But the golden age in the 60s, that's when I was really quite lucky. I had a three-piece gray flannel suit. I wore a fedora hat. I traveled to work with a certain tie every single day. I was really sophisticated. And the industry changed in that one decade from 1951 to the mid-1960s remarkably. And for the golden age, yeah, there wasn't that much prejudice. A lot of people had better opportunities, but it was still very racist.
Well, I wasn't born yet, so I'll start there. Sorry about that, Arthur. Why was it the golden age? One of the things I think is interesting about the 60s, it was such a tumultuous time. You're coming out of the 50s, which was sort of this nuclear family at the end of the war and optimism, and going into the 60s where you had, just like we had in the last decade, this cultural shift and access that was pretty much unprecedented at the time. And out of that, I mean, advertising is at its core, we're architects of memory. We use our experiences to create advertising and campaigns that we draw from deep experiences. And I think as a result of what was occurring culturally in the time, and to your point, the sexism that was sort of just endemic in the profession, the racism, classism, etc., that we had out of that turmoil very interesting ideas that were able to manifest themselves and then get presented into the population at large. It was a very interesting time. A lot of creative people took some risks, and I don't think the Scotch did any harm in that along the way.
Would anybody else like to take that question on?
I think there's lots of demographic and sociographic reasons why. You could talk about the GIs returning from the war. You could talk about women during the war who left home and then went to work, and then, of course, when the war was over, weren't so excited about going back into the home. There were all kinds of societal shifts and changes, but the reason that time period is known as the Golden Age is because of the work. And if you look at the work done by Bernbach, if you look at the work done by George Lois, by guys like Mike Tesh, I mean, there was phenomenal communications that simply weren't done before. Things like Volkswagen's Think Small. That just had never happened before. Ads for Levy's Rye Bread, you don't have to be Jewish. Ad for El Al Airlines. Ads for Doers. I mean, there was the work, and hopefully y'all are looking at it and studying it because it's iconic, and it changed art direction, it changed copywriting, it changed communication, and it had an enormous influence all the way to today of the way we eliminate all the superfluous, we keep things simple, and we really go for messages that resonate with consumers. It's the first time it was done. It's the first time, thanks again to Bernbach, that art and copy was put together as a team instead of copy being handed off to a bullpen of artists who would then create an image based on the copy they were given. So the way the work was created was different, what the work was expected to do was different, and the amount of craftsmanship that was put into the work was never seen before, and pretty much, except for a couple examples, hasn't been seen since.
Also, at that time, the field was much more divided into illustrators and designers. So there were art directors who would design ads, and then they would look for an illustrator. And I think the one thing that happened during that period is people like Milton Glaser and Seymour Quast on Pushpin, with whom I had the good fortune to work, combined those two. And so the illustrator was no longer wondering what would happen to his drawing once somebody else designed the type. Everybody designed the type themselves, or that seems to be what was happening, an amalgam of the two disciplines.